And with that, I want to share something with you. And this is really good because last year when we were in person and we got to do our event and had a panel in person. And one of the things that I did, I started the session off by showing this map, right? Showed the map. Those of you that were there, it was standing room only. It was a small room, but it was still standing room only. And with that map, I said, just take a peek. And this is the map. It should be interactive so that we can see. But once we get the interactive portion, what this does is it shows something that we may not be too familiar with. It shows that, and I don't want to use the word only because 500,000 people is a lot of people. This is the movement of Black bodies through the transatlantic institution of slavery. From Africa, this map shows a timeline through the years of where we were taken, where our ancestors were taken. And for those of you that don't know, yeah, if you can make that smaller so you can see. For those of you that don't know, that portion in between West Africa, Cote d'Ivoire, that whole area, and South America, United States, that's called the Black Atlantic. Called the Black Atlantic because it's lined with Black bodies that for one reason or another didn't make it here, chose not to go on that journey. But look at the massive proportions of individuals, our people, our ancestors, where they went. So about 500,000 to North America, but over 5 million went to South and Central America, with the majority going to Brazil. And if you see that portion, that entry point on the east side, I used to live in a town called Salvador Bahia, Brazil. That's where the majority of the enslaved people went or were taken. And part of this story, we don't always hear about Africans in Mexico. So that map is enlightening, disturbing, relevant, and it shows some things in some cultures that deserve to be recognized. And one of the first times I heard about African people in Mexico was a friend of mine, Ada Camacho. And I was like, what? Africans in Mexico? And again, when I met Dr. Gloria Arjona, when we were doing our visioning for the African American Cultural Center, she was one of the people that I spoke with. And she told me some amazing things, and she's gonna share some song and a little town that you may have heard of there in Mexico. And with that, I'd like to say Dr. Gloria Arjona was born in El Paso, Texas, and grew up in Mexico City, living as well in the Mexico states of Chiapas and Yucatan. She has lived in Los Angeles for more than 30 years. Dr. Arjona received her PhD in Spanish from University of Southern California, where she taught Spanish language and literature for 16 years. She currently teaches at the California Institute of Technology. Everyone, I'd like for you to welcome Dr. Gloria Arjona.
Thank you, Tasha. Muchas gracias. And thank you, everyone, for being here. I have many stories to share with you tonight. And sometimes those stories apparently do not relate directly to me, but I have always known that they are indeed related to me. So I call myself a storyteller through visual images and songs. So I'm going to share with you a PowerPoint. As Tasha mentioned, I am an educator above anything, and I like a little bit of everything to tell my stories. And I have been teaching, as many of you, through Zoom. Okay, so now at the beginning it was quite challenging, but now I get more and more familiar, and I am starting to like it. So I have a lot of information to share, but please, I know that I have 15 minutes, okay? So don't feel bad if you need to interrupt me, because then we're going to open for the audience for a questions and answer session. And we are eager, all of us, to share with you what we know. Okay, so as Tasha mentioned, Brazil was the first country that received, and I want to say not slaves, but enslaved people, because they were not born slaves, they were enslaved by somebody, esclavizados. The second country was Mexico. And seldom anybody recognizes Mexico, and as Brishina was saying, El Salvador, because El Salvador was, after the conquest, part of the viceroyalty of New Spain, Mexico. And seldom are these countries, Mexico and El Salvador and Guatemala, as countries with a strong African heritage. But Mexico was the second port of enslaved people after Brazil. As you can see, these are just numbers, not very accurate numbers, because of course there was, back in those times, and as there is today, contrabando. There were, besides this number, there were other enslaved people that would be in the black market, okay? So after Brazil, which in the 17th century brought 5 million people, from the 17th century to the 19th century, Mexico, through the West Indies, only 4.5 million people. And from there, they would come through mainly from Veracruz. That's why you see that strong, visible in Veracruz, the African heritage. But it doesn't mean that the African heritage in Mexico exists only in Veracruz, because from Veracruz, they would be taken to all around the country. Recently, since the year 2015, they made census for the people to have, for the first time after more than 1 century, the option to decide if you consider yourself Afro-descendant. And every single state of Mexico had people that consider themselves Afro-descendants. So from Veracruz, they were taken to Mexico to work, and to all over to the north and the south to work in the tobacco industry, coffee, cotton, sugar, mining, rice, and in the big cities. I wanted to add this, in the service, because in Mexico City, there were a lot of Afro-descendants working as servants, as maids, as nannies, for rich people. It was the elite loved to have slaves to show off, because of course they were expensive and they were a sign of status. Okay, but that's not it. Afro-descendants were in Mexico from the very moment that the Spanish stepped into the Americas. And when I say America, please, at least for tonight, I am not referring to the United States, okay? So the Indian codices, the indigenous people that after the conquest recorded their story, they recorded Afro-descendant conquistadors. They are today recognized as Black conquistadors. So there were Afro-descendants, free Afro-descendants first before than enslaved people. If just for your information, in the United States, everybody knows the story of Ponce de Leon, the conquistador that came to what today is Florida in look for the youth, for the eternal youth fountain, and he brought with him many African conquistadors. One of them is recorded, I believe, is in this. Some people recognize this African conquistador as Juan Cortés, because he accompanied Hernán Cortés. Another as the African conquistador that accompanied Ponce de Leon. But the important thing is that the African presence in what today is the United States was at least 1 century before the European presence, okay, because they arrived to Florida in the early 16th century or late 15th century rather. Okay, so I wanted to share about, to demystify one of the common myths is that enslaved people would passively accept their destiny. And that's a total lie, because from the very beginning, when there were uprisings of indigenous, of Africans, and together indigenous and African people, just as we are tonight, okay? And they would risk their lives, and they would go to the high mountains and founded their cities, known in Mexico as palenques, and in other countries as mocambos, cumbes, and in Brazil as quilombos. And over there, they would found their little cities and they would keep their traditions. That's why we have those traditions. And I am amazed to share with you, those of you who do not know, that one of the most notorious runaway slaves, cimarrones, maroons, was Yanga or Ñanga, who is known today in Mexico as the first liberator of slavery, because he resisted the Spaniards for 30 years, giving them so much headaches that at the end they have to grant him and his palenque the status of a free slave territory, and this was in 1608. So these are stories that really, as the previous, as Regina, whom I knew before and we worked together before. I'm so happy to see her. These are stories that need to be told, because unfortunately we don't have these heroes in our history books. Why? Why? When he is so important, okay? Yanga, he was born in Central Africa, probably in the middle of the 16th century, and came to the Americas, enslaved, of course, and he probably planned his escape while he was traveling, because as soon as he arrived to the Americas, he escaped and, as I said before, resisted the Spanish authorities for 30 years until the King of Spain recognized his territory as the free territory of Yanga, San Lorenzo de los Negros, founded in 1608. So that's only a little bit of a story that I wanted to share with you. I feel very passionate about this. Another way to tell stories is not, this is a replica of a mocambo, of a palenque. This is in a museum, a small museum in Guerrero. and you can see how they were organized and how they survived and how they used, they were sustainable, now that we love that that idea, and they cultivated the native plants and they survived. Okay, like Yanga, they survived for 30 years. And not only in Mexico, we have a notice of mocambos in Brazil, in Colombia, in Central America, in Venezuela, okay? But we seldom identify Mexico as a country with this rich African heritage. I want to share with you. Well, these images come from the Spanish chronicles. Okay, of course, the Mocambos or the Palenques, they were the worst threat for the Spanish authority, so they would destroy immediately as soon as they knew about any of these establishments. They would destroy that. Okay. It's not a coincidence, and I wanted to show just a little bit that most of the music, Latin American music, have terms that derive from an African language. I cannot think in any genre on music or dance in Latin America, not only Mexico, that does not derive from an African term. And just to mention a few: cumbia, bamba, bachata, candombe, mambo, you hear that? That's African language. And then in our regular language, we have a lot of words that are from African origin, like banana, chambon, chimpanzee, mondongo, mucama, quilombo, tanga, zombie. Okay, that's Africa that we have in our everyday day language. Okay, as well as in our food. When Breshina mentioned the pupusas, I say I have to include one image of food. You know, something curious I found while tracing the African influence in food is that the indigenous populations, although the peanut, los cacahuates, are from indigenous origin, the indigenous populations didn't pay too much attention. It was like they were not interested in the peanuts and mani, right? But the Afro descendants, they did what today we would call the Afro-Mexicans. They did, so they cultivated. They are the population that cultivated most the peanuts, and nowadays we have in these places where the African presence is very strong, like in the coast, mainly in Veracruz or in the coast of the Pacific, we have a lot of dishes with chicken and peanut, and all of these are Afro mestizo Mexican dishes. Okay, just to open your appetite, so you can go plátano macho. We all in Latin America we have this combination. Okay, and of course, perhaps where the African influence is more notorious is in music. And I will end my brief introduction for now, because later on when we end for good, we're going to sing together, I hope, a song, the Colores, right? To honor the beautiful name and theme of this program. But I want to sing a song, I recorded it before, which is called La Bruja. And this song talks about a witch, una bruja. Is not a bad witch, okay? Is a bruja coqueta. And why a bruja? Because the Inquisition records show that many Afro-Mexican women were judged as brujas, as witches, during the colonial times. So I'm going to share with you this song that I love. Es un son del sotavento, and I'm singing this in Spanish, and then the second part in the Zapotec, which is one of the main languages of this region of Oaxaca. So I'm sharing with you this, La Bruja. Let me verify that the sound is okay because I know that, okay, let me check here.
It's good. You can.
It's good? Okay,
Yes.
okay, thank you.
Pikachu, pato. Pikachu, ahí viene la bruja. Villa.
Ay, qué bonito es volar, y a las 2 de la mañana, y a las 2 de la mañana. Ay, qué bonito es volar, volar y dejarse caer en los brazos de una dama, y en los brazos de una dama. Ay, qué bonito es volar, me agarra la bruja, me lleva a su casa, me vuelve maceta y una calabaza. Escóndete, Juana, escóndete, chepa, que ya anda la bruja bajo la ventana. Oraciones noche griego, Villa Hagano a ti Villa, Villa Hagano a ti Villa. Oraciones noche griego, Dale udo de bijido, udo ti bijido raro, udo ti bijido raro. Mare godo de bijido, asenda bija, chine benagi, nagi te bena, uni benamigo, Pikachi rubado, Pikachi, Pikachi, asenda bija, asenda ribaba. Yo me encontré con la bruja debajo de la sabana, debajo de la sabana. Yo me encontré con la bruja, dijo que me iba a meter en la barriga de iguana, y hasta me iba a morder. Escóndete, Juan, escóndete, chepa, que ya anda la bruja bajo la ventana. Me agarra la bruja, me lleva a su casa, me vuelve maceta y una calabaza. Ay, dígame usted, ¿cuántas criaturitas se ha chupado usted? Ninguna, ninguna, ninguna no ve, yendo en pretensiones de chupar usted.
Okay, I hope you like this music. I am sorry. Now I cannot stop the music. Let me stop share, okay? And well, thank you very much. And I hope, I don't know what is the program right now. We're going to open for questions, or it was a pleasure to share with you this information.